Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 77, the Jeremy Knight story in his 190-inch Kentucky Giant. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
G'day mates, this is Zach Shaggy Slattery from Adelaide, Australia, and I'm Williams & Co. Bow Hunting and Fishing. You're listening to my favourite hunting podcast on the internet, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
My name is Evan Coons, and I'm from Indiana, and I shot the wide load buck. And you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast on the internet, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
I'm Jim Stickles, deer biologist, and you're listening to my favorite hunting podcast on the internet, Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Dusty Phillips, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, and I'm joined today with Jay Scott. What's happening, Jay?
What's up, Dusty? I can't believe you said you're the host, man. I'm the host. You're the co-host.
Co-host. Let's say co-host. My bad.
No, that's all right. I'll let you have the spotlight for a little while. I'm totally cool with that. What's going on, man?
Just another day here in Ohio, and you know, you can tell that Ohio shotgun was last week. That's a fact. My goodness. I go out to the stand and I see squirrels. You know, squirrels don't care about Ohio deer gun, but I know the deer sure are spooky.
How has your season gone? Be honest. Yeah, be honest.
As far as slickheads, it's gone really good.
Yep.
But for some reason here lately, I can't lay my eyes on some antler, and I'm not quite figured it out yet. I don't know what I'm doing wrong or what's going on. I just don't think the deer are here in Ohio like they're claiming. But okay. You know, that's in my area. I'm just going to grind it out. I'm going to keep going until I see what I want to shoot, and I know it's there. I know there's a couple nice bucks in my area.
Yep. I
know they're nocturnal. But I do know that cold weather's coming. There's going to be some snow, and there's going to be some definite daytime moving of some mature bucks once everything settles back down from deer gun week.
Yep. Would you say that you could take home something positive from the season so far?
Well, yeah, I got a big doe in the freezer. That's one thing positive. You know, as far as deer sightings, I'm doing real good.
Okay.
But I'm not seeing the bucks like I thought I would.
Interesting. That's I'm hearing that a lot from around the country. Even our good friend Lane Benoit was still out trying to find a track. He did find one out somewhere. He won't disclose his location, but it seems like there are a lot of really good hunters having the same exact experience this year. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just us or if it's just there's something larger than us going on.
Right. I don't understand it myself. You know, usually by now I'm tagged out. I'm done for the year. But, you know, there's always a few seasons that it's taken me to the end of the year, you know.
Right.
We don't go out till February 1st with our archery. We still got a 3-day muzzleloader yet to come, but I'm usually by, November the 18th, I'm usually on the couch watching hunting shows, but this year I got to keep after it.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat, brother. I went out last weekend. It was the last weekend of rifle. And I've had some opportunities. I've had bucks in the scope. Just couldn't put it all together for various reasons.
Yeah, that's why they call it hunting, not killing.
That's right. That's exactly right. I did a good, I had a good buddy of mine, a good old hunting buddy. We went out to this one spot last week. Last hurrah, let's get it done. Did a low sweep of the lowlands and then came up onto the hill and did a little push using the crunch of the snow to our advantage. And pushed walked down through this area, and there was more deer sign, fresh deer sign. I'm talking highways, all made within the last 24 hours. And there had to be so many deer there that it was almost inevitable you're going to see one. Never saw a single deer. It's like we're 3 hours later, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that just tells you that the deer are smarter than you ever thought.
Yep. They're built for survival.
Oh yeah, they're built to read a situation and make the best of safety.
Yep. And when the hunters have become prominent and they're trying to survive and they identify you as a predator, the crunch of a heavy snow is going to keep them moving along.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're going to know where to bust away. This is the way it goes.
I'd say it time and time again, big mature bucks don't want to die.
That's right.
They do not,
That's right. Now, if I was turkey hunting, or if I was pheasant hunting, or if I was grouse hunting, or even if I was trying to find any other animal except a deer, I found it last Sunday.
It's amazing, ain't it?
It is unbelievable.
When it's turkey season, you can't find a turkey.
Pretty much.
You can't. When you're hunting grouse, you can't find a grouse. When you're looking for a pheasant, you can't find a pheasant. It's amazing how that works.
I did, on the way to our spot, I did spot 2 doe that were feeding under a hemlock tree on the way, and we swung around. I jumped out of my truck with my bow, tried to sneak up on them, and the very first step I took into the snow was crunch, crunch, and they were gone.
No kidding.
Yep, and didn't even have a chance. Got to our spot. The minute I drove up, there were deer tracks everywhere. Fresh stuff within the last 24 hours. 2 grouse were kind of just coming up over the ridge, looked right at us, walked away, came back, looked, it was like they didn't care. But I wasn't grouse hunting, of course, and we were deer hunting. No deer to be found. Saw 50-something turkeys, all flocked up like they do this time of year. But we're not turkey hunting. We're deer hunting.
It's just amazing how that works.
It's ungodly.
They know.
They really do. I'm not a threat. I saw turkeys, small, large, in between the biggest monster longbeards you've ever seen. But did I see a deer? No.
So do you think your deer herd's down, or do you think that...
I think, no, not in this area where I was. I think their deer are plentiful there, and we were just not in the right area.
Gotcha.
I think they were there about 3 or 4 hours before us, and we might have pushed them out, or there were some other hunters. I found other hunters' tracks that had kind of gone through the area, sort of. So the snow was so loud and crunchy that if they heard that, the whole herd probably got out of there before we even got to the spot. That's my guess.
Yeah, well, I wish we could get some snow here. That's something we're lacking this year is snowfall. Hopefully it's to come. It's mid-December, and the future's calling for snow here, so we'll see what happens. I think that once the snow hits, this guy is going to be in the stand a whole lot.
Nice. Well, I'm going to give it one last hurrah tomorrow with the bow. We have one more day of bow, and I'm going to try to get to a spot where they're hanging out and just sit down.
Is Sunday it then?
Sunday's it, man. It's it for the season.
Dang.
After that, I'm going to do a little ice fishing. And then it's going to be turkey season come spring. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on.
Right on. Late season here in Ohio is, man, it can be unbelievable. It could be, if we get the snow or some freezing rain, it could be some of the best sets of the year, That's what I'm hoping for.
Yep. I asked you the question about, have you found anything good about the season so far? And the reason I asked that is because I've actually, because of where I was hunting, why I was hunting, I actually got out to some new spots that I have never seen before and found some spots like this one I was talking about. I've never hunted that spot before, but it held more deer. 3 different spots that I went to held more deer that I have never hunted prior. So it was an experience to learn. Is almost once the snow fell, now you really had a good idea where most of the deer are hanging out in spots that other hunters probably haven't realized yet.
That's the cool part about snow. And,
yes.
I'm kind of jealous of New Hampshire style hunting. If it's not posted, you can hunt it.
Right. Boy,
you're in real trouble here in Ohio if you're on land that's not posted because you're supposed to have written permission.
It's one of when I hunt other states, I'm not used to that.
Yeah, it's definitely coming to you would be different because I'd just go, so I'd go till I'd found a sign.
Heck yeah. That's the best part about New Hampshire.
You got a rifle, you got some distance you can shoot. Let's take a walk and bump something up and get a shot off.
Yep. You just go until you're told to stop by a sign, a yellow sign or an orange sign in the middle of the woods somewhere.
It's craziness.
Yep. And then, but if I were using that mentality somewhere else, I'd probably end up in jail.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd have some tickets and some fines, and Yeah, it definitely wouldn't work here in Ohio. But, I always wondered, and then that's a question that you've answered over the last couple of years here, that if I had access to roam all this land, if I could get a mature buck harvested yearly, every year, no matter what, I had all this land, why wouldn't I? But that was always a question in my mind, that if you could hunt unlimited ground that's not posted, if you could really take advantage of it. Well, it's not as easy as it sounds, is it?
Nope. The deer are still smarter than you are, or not necessarily smarter, but they have better survival instincts than you're prepared for.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. And we don't, granted, the example we're using for me, or you're using the example of me for New Hampshire, we don't have as many deer. So if you could do what we could do in New Hampshire, in Ohio, no doubt you'd have higher success rates because you have more deer.
Right. It makes me think that, I'm going to take a 2-mile hike. You come walking with me. So we're buddy hunting.
Right.
That's my thing. I'm going in 2 miles, just drive the woods to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we do.
Right.
You either jump on a track, or you get a buddy, or you get a couple buddies, and you kind of push an area with humans and get them moving.
Right. That's the cool part about having big land to travel on.
Exactly. It's like public. It's all public land unless you're told otherwise.
Right. That's cool.
Yep, that's very cool.
Yeah, to me it's totally different. And here I get on an 11-acre parcel, and that's all I got.
Right.
And everything around me is no hunting.
Right. And we all adapt to our hunting styles based off of what we're given.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So let's stop talking about us and our unsuccess rate, and let's start talking about somebody that actually killed one this year.
I'll tell you what, we got a Kentucky Slammer coming on here today.
A huge Kentucky Slammer, 190-inch-ish. Is that what it ended up being?
Yeah, my goodness. Wow. That's a big buck.
Mr. Jeremy Knight, who is on the pro staff of Infraction Mineral and Covert Scouting Cameras, joining us to tell us the story of the monster Kentucky whitetail that he was able to take down.
Let's get him on.
Let's do it.
Let's hear the story of this Kentucky Slammer.
Yeah, let's hear the story about somebody that actually shot a deer.
That was a good one, Jay. Let's get him on.
Jeremy Knight, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are y'all?
I'm doing good. You don't have to call me sir. I just like to say sir. But that's all cool. I don't think Dusty's going to care, but I like the politeness anyway. That's cool.
Hey, as long as we can talk about this monster buck, this Kentucky giant, you can call me anything you want, Jeremy Knight.
Yeah, you can call me anything you want to. You're shooting bigger deer than I am, so that's a heck of a. You can do whatever you want to do.
I've just been lucky. Just been very lucky.
Luck has a huge role in whitetail hunting. I have to agree to that.
Luck kicks in whenever preparation and patience and all that meets.
Absolutely.
All that has to come in together for everything to go down.
Agree totally.
Completely agree with that. So, Jeremy, let's break it down. Let's break down who you are. Let's break down the hunt. Let's break down your gear setup, all those things you attribute your success to. We're trying to figure out if we can get some clues as to how we can become better hunters ourselves by learning what you did and what you do to make yourself shoot big deer like you did. That's what we want to know. We're trying to help ourselves out and help our community out. If that's cool.
Right. I'm 32 years old now. I've been hunting, or at least going to the woods and being around hunting ever since I was born. I've been going out into the woods with my dad and a couple of his buddies probably ever since I was 5 or 6. I can remember just going and sitting and watching, watching the deer, and just couldn't wait to get my first deer, and seeing, learning the techniques of the sign, but like rubs and scrapes and how they're traveling, and learning all that through my dad, and just the opportunity of being out there has helped me in the success that I've had the past few years on my own. Hunting has come a very long way. I mean, back when I started, we didn't have trail cameras, and you didn't hear nothing about food plots. I mean, you had soybeans, corn, and wheat to hunt, or acorns or whatever.
How old were you when you harvested your first buck or your first deer?
I was 9 years old when I shot my first deer.
Awesome. Great age.
Nice.
Shot him with a 12-gauge slug is what I killed my first deer with.
No kidding. Can you take us back to that moment? Do you remember when you were 9?
Yeah. I'd even started bow hunting around that age also, but nothing ever come into range really for bow, because I've been around it, but I haven't put much preparation into bow hunting because my dad had always muzzle loaded and gun hunted. But I can remember me and him going out to the farm, like shooting and getting everything sighted in. And my cousin, I mean, we had to take our hunter safety course, man. We were just pumped about it. So it was a youth weekend, and my dad had took my cousin to opening day, and he'd shot a deer. And, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. It was, like, ecstatic. I mean, it was like Christmas Day, you know. He killed his first deer. I was pumped for him. And then the next day, we went out, and, you know, we hunted that morning, didn't see a deer at all. In the afternoon, I mean, it was closing down. It was getting close to dark. And we was hunting the field edge. And just so happened, here come a bunch of does just come piling out. And next thing I know, here stepped out what I thought was a good 8-pointer. And he was just broadside, and he stayed broadside to me. And, I mean, the light was closing down, so I just put the gun up on his front shoulder and pulled the trigger. And he ran a little bit, and he fell down. So we got up and we started walking over to him, and he got ready to get up again. So I shot him again because I wanted to make sure he wasn't going to track, because how far, like, the thicket was and stuff, there was no way we could have found him that night. But after the second shot, he never did move anymore, and I got up over to him and picked him up, and he was just a half rack. And I was just as happy over that half rack deer as I am any deer anymore. I mean, especially after the one I killed this year, just because it was my first deer, you know, and feeling the rush. And, I mean, you'll never forget that feeling. If you lose having buck fever and all that stuff, there's no sense in even hunting if you don't get nothing from it. But I don't think.
I agree with that.
I mean, I still get tore up now. I mean, if it's not before or during the shot, right after the shot, man. I mean, it's just a shot.
When you say tore up, son, there ain't nothing like it. Tore up. I get tore up too. How about you, Jay?
I get wicked tore up, man.
Oh man.
Hey, so you called it a half rack. Sometimes I like to call that a Pa-diddle.
Yeah.
I call it a dink.
A what?
A dink.
Spell that.
D-I-N-K. A dink buck. Has a half rack called a dink.
Really? Where'd you come up with that?
I don't know. Something popped in my head.
Is that a Buckeye thing?
You know how I am, Jay. Stuff just randomly comes into my head.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
I
does.
Said, I come home one day and told my wife that I seen a dink tonight. She's like, "What is a dink?" So it's a half rack.
Yeah.
I have to apologize, Jeremy, for some of Dusty's behavior sometimes.
Hey, I tell you what, I'm a good time all the time.
He is, and I just like to let his creativity flow and not reel it in. We're artists here, so we're just let it go. Where are you from, Jeremy?
I'm from Franklin, Kentucky. I'm right on the Kentucky-Tennessee line. I'm about 30 minutes from Nashville. I'm north of Nashville.
No kidding.
If you know where, I'm about 20 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky.
What was it like growing up down there? Was it a country setting or is it a city setting?
Pretty much a country setting. It's a small town. I mean, you know, everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows what you're doing, and they got a lot of assumption, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of small town drama. If you do good, you know, and some of the others around either get jealous because you've done good or try to make something of yourself. Everybody tries to bring you down. You just got to keep your head up and keep pushing on, you know, whether it's business or hunting industry or whatever.
Gotcha. So what do you do for a living?
I do construction work for a living. I do electrical and stuff like that.
Very nice. And growing up, who would you attribute your skill set to? Was there somebody that taught you how to hunt, or just something you developed on your own?
Probably my dad. Man, he's hunted and hunted and hunted. I mean, he's hunted back when he could. He hunted probably harder than I do now. And I mean, I feel that I hunt like a wild man. I really do.
A wild man.
Yeah. I mean, if I could hunt 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, I'd do it. I mean, if the weather's permitting and it's that time of year, I'm there.
All right, this got my interest. Tell us how you hunt like a wild man.
Man, I don't stop hunting. And what I mean by I don't stop hunting is I'm always preparing and scouting and putting my time in the woods to learn my settings that I'm hunting and to learn my deer activity, because the deer's pattern changes all throughout the year. I mean, you know, their summer pattern's going to be different from the fall pattern to the rut pattern and all that. I mean, from January to January, I'm running trail cameras, I'm scouting deer, I'm shed hunting, you know, I mean, even shed hunting, I mean, people think, wow, that's kind of crazy, but I mean, I enjoy the heck out of it. I might not find one, and I might find 3 or 4, you know. But that also helps you kind of learn the travel route that you might not know, and you go throw up one of them covert cameras and see what's going on.
That's a magic word right there.
Man, them cameras are great. They've helped me out tremendously, I tell you.
Yeah, I love those cameras, man. And I just actually think we were just on a news feed on Pat Howard's site. I think, and you're friends with Pat Howard, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
I had Pat on the, he is a good guy. I had him on the podcast, Dusty and I both did. And I had to spend an hour with both Pat and Dusty in that same interview, just so you know. It was all I could do to contain both of them.
Hey, I got to say though, Pat did keep his composure when he did the Culver when he did the Culver podcast.
Yeah, he did.
We need to have Pat on just for Pat Howard. Back to your wild man, hunting like a wild man.
Wild man. Let's get into that some more.
That sounds like that. You need a Facebook page or something. It's like Whitetail Wild Man or Wild Man Whitetails or something.
Yeah.
And tell your story. Get it out for the people to interact with you.
Right. One of the cool things I did with this deer, I have the last 2 years. I've spent on that one deer. I've spent a lot of time just chasing him and hunting him and just losing sleep over him and everything else. But everything ties back. All the technology now ties back into the roots that I learned whenever I very first started. Find the sign, find the rubs, find the scrapes, the food, and then you'll find your deer. The cameras now, you put your, it's not a guessing game. You can tell what size deer's in there, you might have a good deer that you would shoot. If you didn't have that camera, you might have a monster coming in right behind him, and you not really know it. And if you're sitting there first light, opening day of bow season, and that deer comes in, and it's one that you would be very happy with, you shoot him, then you let him go expire, and then here comes this monster deer, and you're like, dang, what if I'd have sit here, would he still come through? Well, you go to the technology we have now, you got cameras. You can tell the time, the patterns, how much they're changing and all that stuff. And it does help out. But you've also got to have a starting point as what to look for in the woods to put your cameras on. And that, and then, standing there shed hunting. Sheds will show you like a travel route or a bedding area or anything. And it might not even be a spot that you've ever even thought about. And it could be a gold mine that you've missed that could help you for the next year.
Can we back that up a second, Jeremy? You said you got to know what to put the cameras on, you said. What does that mean?
Like what to place them on what kind of food source, like, different times of the year. Some people like acorns or like you got a honeysuckle thicket or persimmons. You can tell which one they're using more and concentrate on one separate, areas of the woods. Like from one end of the woods, you've got your persimmons, you got another end of the woods that's holding all your acorns or your white oaks or whatever. You see where your deer concentrate at more. They say that a persimmon's like candy to deer. And I've seen a lot more deer this year on acorns than I have on persimmons.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So it sounds like you're a steward of the outdoors, like you pay attention to little things.
Right. Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
The small things lead to the big pictures most of the time. The area that I shot this deer in, it's about a 330 acre farm, and 300 acres of it's on one side of the road, and this little bitty 30 acre spot that I'm hunting where I'm at, it's got a creek running through it.
Yep. There's
very, very, very few acorns in there. The good thing that I've got here is the farmer that joins me on one side, he's logged it, and he don't let nobody at all hunt. It's like a sanctuary right there. And then the guy that joins from the other end, he's got the food and stuff up there, but they don't bow hunt or nothing like that. And I've got the water source. The creek runs all the way through my farm. But there's food right across the road from me, and there's a little bitty spot of CRP ground or sage grass, like a bedding area. And they just funnel up and down that creek, coming back and forth from the bedding area or going to the food. And I'm just at the pinch point of all of it right there. And, it's been a very, very good farm for me.
Gotcha.
I've hunted the farm probably I've hunted that's where I killed my first deer. It was on the same farm as I'm hunting now, and that my little boy took his deer on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's always a great feeling, ain't it?
So you've got a good spot, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so far, I'm very lucky that I haven't had to lease it or anything like that. The way we come across this farm is the guy was a tobacco farmer, and during the wintertime, my dad used to have a mulch company where they grind mulch, and we took it to all the nurseries and stuff. And in the wintertime, all that slowed down because all the landscaping slowed down. So Dad would haul tobacco for this guy to the sale floor, and he would try to pay Dad, and Dad's like, no, he's like, just let me hunt. He's like, that'll be plenty. He said, I'll haul tobacco as long as you raise it. And that guy's like, that's a deal. So, that's where I grew up hunting. I know that area like the back of my hand. And some of the farms around I've lost, but they all joined that one farm. But this farmer's always had this farm, and I don't see him selling out at all. And he's let it all grow up. He used to run cows on. He took his cows off. And I mean, it's rabbit heaven, deer heaven, turkey heaven, whatever you want. It's a sportsman's paradise right there, and I'm just very fortunate to have it and keep it as long as I have.
Make sure you get me the address to that before we get off this podcast, if you don't mind.
Hey, come down, I'll take you.
Whoa! All right, now we're talking.
I'm not too far away from you. I might take you up on that, Jeremy.
That's fine. I've got a camera out right now. I'm trying to find one for my little boy. We've had some tough luck. I hunted with him all gun season, and he likes to shoot that muzzleloader. He's only 8 years old, but I tell you what, he shoots pretty good for an 8-pointer, or for an 8-year-old, 8-pointer. Well, he missed a good 8 the last day of gun season, but I'm gonna try to get him on one here, the late muzzleloader, the last free youth day in December. It'll be after Christmas. But I mean, he's just as dedicated as I am. I mean, I can't go anywhere. He's out there putting out minerals, checking cameras. He's out there with me just every time that I have him. He's right by me, and that's something I enjoy. I don't push it on him. If he wants to go, he's more than welcome to go. If he wants to stay at the house, hey, we'll stay at the house. But
what's your boy's name, Jeremy?
Logan. Yes, sir.
Well, shout out to Logan, and good luck here coming up the rest of the season.
We're going to give it our best.
I have a feeling that's just like, of course you are. I mean, you're going to be out there no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have to push you, prod you, encourage you. You're there, man. It's in your head.
Yeah.
It's in your blood.
I'm deer hunting. I mean, even whenever I'm turkey hunting, I'm still deer hunting.
All right, absolutely.
You do that too. Interesting. I do that.
Yeah.
I do that same thing.
Coyote hunt.
It's all connected, right? It's just, I mean, that's the point, is that all this stuff is connected. One season, I mean, the seasons come and go, but it's all one big season, and you're always picking up clues and tips on what's happening in each part of your woods that you're hunting or scouting. You never stop. You never stop scouting. Is what it comes down to.
No, sir. I stay in there as much as I can. If I'm not working, I'm in the woods. Well, God's willing to let me go, I'll keep going. I mean, I don't plan on changing.
Gotcha. I don't blame you. Let's start breaking down some of your setup here. I'm looking for clues or some other clues. We got one good piece of this puzzle, is that you got a really good spot, and that you're surrounded by this. It's not really protected area, but it's a sanctuary of sorts, and you're right at the point of it with your land and your creek. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir, it is.
So that's a big piece of the puzzle. But just because you're there doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. There's got to be some other stuff that you do in preparation. I'd like Dusty to kind of break down your gear setup and all that stuff that you think you do specific to you to make you successful in the field.
Yeah, one thing, I mean, time's a big part of it. Preparation, I use an infraction deer mineral. It's really helped my deer a lot. Helps the health of the herd also, you know. I mean, it's not all about harvesting an animal. It's about hunting and keeping your animals healthy. If, you know, giving them what they need to grow the antlers and to keep their immune system and all that up, you know.
We know old Dusty Clark down there from Infraction.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I got hooked up with him last year, and his product's working. I mean, he's second to none, and I'm glad that he's doing good for himself.
You know, what's interesting, as we're having this conversation, Dusty and I are live on Facebook. We've been tweeting on Facebooking on our accounts saying that we're talking to you tonight. And so far, Pat Howard has jumped in. Dusty Clark has jumped in. The only person we haven't heard from yet is Allison.
Just a matter of time.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah, I talked to Allison a few times. I wrote a story about the hunt for this deer after I harvested him, and you know, just told the ups and downs, and basically like what I'm kind of telling y'all about, you know, how I prepared for it and stuff like that, and just about the chase for him. I mean, it's like chasing a dream. You know, he got last year I'd say he was probably a 150-inch deer, and I mean, just chasing an animal like that, there's not very many deer around this county that's that size. And
right, absolutely. Let's get in a little more detail. We're going to start out. What kind of camouflage are you wearing, Jeremy?
I use Mossy Oak breakup, Moss Oak Infinity. I use a scent blocker camo. I really like it. It keeps me concealed very well. I mean, there's different times of the year I'll switch out to different patterns. Early season I like the Infinity. And then, like right now, this late in the season, I'll use a tree stand, which, because there's no leaves, and this time of the year, late season, most time, if I'm bow hunting, I'm going to get up in the air and just hang out and see what I can do.
All right, I got to agree with you on the Mossy Oak Breakup Infinity. It's unbelievable, the patterns. Great stuff. You got any particular boots you wear out there?
Lacrosse brands, what I use, the Alpha Burleys. I don't get the insulated ones because the weather here don't ever get cold enough to need insulated boots, really, to double up on the socks, you know.
Right, yeah, absolutely. That's Kentucky for you. That's great weather there.
Yep.
Say, go ahead.
Nikon binoculars, I use them a lot. I mean, my farthest, looking in the spot that I'm hunting, I can probably see 30 yards, 35 mostly, because it starts to get thick, but using the Nikon binoculars, you know, you can get that extra little bit in the woods, and you can see a deer, you know. If you're standing in the brush and you're looking, taking your time looking like you need to be, I mean, they're crystal clear and they work. And I mean, I was using them whenever I actually first spotted this year. But
okay, no kidding. Do you store your hunting clothing in any kind of storage unit?
Yes, sir. I put it in a scent-free bag. You know, whenever I get ready to wash my camo, I'll wash the washer out 3 or 4 times. Then I'll wash it in dead downwind detergent. Then I'll dry it in the with a dead downwind dryer sheet, or I'll just hang it outside. I'll wash it all, then I'll hang it outside for 2 or 3 weeks. If it rains on it, it rains on it. Whatever, let it air dry out.
Is there any particular soap that you use in the machine?
Are you in the what name? In the machine?
Yeah, like when you wash when you go through the washing machine, what kind of soap do you use to?
I use the dead downwind.
Okay, what I use. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, awesome. Yeah. Let's say you get closer to season, and you said that you put your clothing out for a couple of weeks outside and just let the weather beat it up. And you know, do you think that helps you by doing that? Do you think that maybe gives you an edge on getting the scent out by letting it rain and just the weather taking over the clothing?
Yes, in a way, yeah, I do, because I mean, there's no more natural smell than being outside. You know, I mean, if you've got it in a house or anything, like from the time that it goes from outside, I mean, I go outside and I drop it in my scent-free tote, and it goes in my truck. And and whenever I get to the woods, I get the tote out, I'll get ready, and I'll just throw my other clothes in the truck, and I'll put my tote back up outside of my truck, stick it back in there, then I go hunt. Whenever I get done hunting, I come back and I pull the tote out, put my camo and stuff back in my tote, shut it back in there. Yeah, I mean, I don't go and get gas. I don't drive in my vehicle. I don't do none of that stuff in my camo. It's for the woods.
Yeah, that's something that's very often overlooked. When you're after a 190-inch buck like your self-harvested, you can't make mistakes from the woods to the car, from the house to the woods. You know, that's something I'm gonna point out, that, you know, often a hunter doesn't realize how important it is, the prep to actually go to the woods versus, you know, from the house to going in the car, then from the car going into the woods. That's a major point there that, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a lot of room for error from your house to the woods.
Yeah, yes, there is. I tell you, I never did. I would wash my camo and I would throw it in a tote. And then a few years back, my cousin, man, he's a diehard hunter also, and he guides elk hunts and all that stuff out in New Mexico. He's like, you ought to put it outside. And I was like, why? And he got to telling me the same thing I was telling y'all about. You know, that's the most natural thing. I mean, rain's no scent. And he's like, that's just another step. He's like, what you're doing is fine. He's like, that's just another step to maybe help me. He said, I don't know if it helps or not, but, you know, it'd be worth a try. And then I started doing it, and, I mean, I'm seeing and killing deer, but hey, I'll take any advice I can get. And he's a little younger than me, but I tell you, he's done a lot of studying up, and he knows his hunting real well. And, you know, he's got a farm. There's one farm in between me and him that we hunt, and he's got leased also. And there's him and one more person that that's local, that I share my deer stuff with, and my deer pictures and all of that. And, you know, I mean, we give each other feedback, and we try to, you know, position, say, hey, I think it'd be better if you hunted here, or, you know, we keep each other informed about how the deer movement is and what bucks are where and stuff like that.
Right, that's awesome.
Actually,
you know, Go ahead.
He shot one of the deer that I had on camera this year. Which come in late. I think it was after second muzzle that come in, but he shot it this Kentucky gun seat, and he got to talking like, look this deer. I said, that deer looks familiar. I said, I think it's the one I had on camera. And I tell you, that's the first deer that I know of that's actually he's had on camera or killed that I've had down there. I mean, there's a lot of times that our bucks don't intertwine or cross, and I don't understand why with it being that close. But there's been a couple of instances that it has happened, and he's had one of my deer, or I thought I've had one of his.
So you guys down there claiming your deer then?
Yeah, it's kind of bragging rights, I guess.
Right.
He got me here. I think it was back before bow season started. I had a coon hunter. I was having two big deer come in. This deer that I harvested and one more big deer come in together, and I had a coon hunter come up on camera, and the deer I harvested went missing for a couple of weeks off my camera, but the other one was pretty regular. And he called me one day. He's like, your big deer's at? And it's like 2 days before season opens. He's like, your big deer's up here on my camera. And he hadn't hung a set because he wasn't having no shooters or nothing on his camera up there, so he didn't hang no set. And he said, I'm going this afternoon and hanging a set. He said, I'm going to get that deer. I was like, man, I thought, hey, I said, we don't have deer. I was like, whoever's meant to kill that deer is going to be the one that kills it. I don't care how long you watch it, how long you fed it. I don't care what you've done. I mean, that deer's going to change pattern, and if it's meant for you to kill it, it's going to kill it. I was like, I'd just be happy for you to harvest it as I would for me, as long as he don't get run over or something like that. At least one of us will get to enjoy it,
Yeah, absolutely. I've been accused of tying deer up and shooting them after I tied them up. That sounds familiar down there.
Well, that's what you do.
Yeah,
that's what I do. Yeah, I wish this year I must have let too many loose. I guess
you need some stronger rope, apparently.
Something. I'm going to go with cable.
There you go.
Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your bow and what kind of bow are you shooting, and get into the arrows and broadheads. Just kind of work us through that briefly and touch bases on it, and maybe tell us how long you've owned the bow and if you name your bow and all the good stuff about your bow.
Man, I've shot Matthews since 2000. I mean, I've shot a lot of Matthews. I'm one of those that if I didn't trade every year, I was trading every other year, But at the start, it was like January or February of this year, I went in to get a new Matthews at my local bow shop Hunter's Den over in Russellville. And I went in and I was talking to Alan, and I was like, I want to try one of these new Matthews. And I think it was like the Chill or something else. And I was like, so I went and shot it, and I was coming back out. I was like, man, that's a pretty sweet bow. And I was like, I want to check out these Elites. So I want to try one of those. So I picked that Elite up, man, and just from the start, I mean, just holding my hand, it felt like the bow.
It's like a new pair of expensive gloves. When you slide them on, it just felt right.
Yep. I went out there, man. I shot it. It felt good. It anchored good. And I mean, whenever you draw it back, I mean, it was there. I mean, it was like a solid wall. There was no, trying to run or anything like that. I've had a couple of Matthews. You pull back and you just let your arm just relax a little bit and it tries to run. Man, that Elite, it's like a rock. And I don't think there's another bow compared to it. I really don't. It's a little longer bow because I like to shoot 3D too. It's a Elite Energy 35 is what it is. And I mean, I shoot 3D, then I'll turn around and I go deer hunt with it,
No kidding.
Yep.
So kind of a multi-purpose bow and works for both then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Sure does.
What kind of arrows are you pushing?
I'm shooting the Black Eagle Carnivores.
Black Eagle Carnivores.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying carbon, correct?
Yes, sir. It is a carbon arrow, and it's not like some of your other carbon arrows. I mean, they're not. They say carbon on them, but they're not all carbon. You can put a flex on some of your carbon arrows, and I mean, you can tell that it's going to have a little bit of a bend to it. I mean, it's not going to exactly go back to perfect shape because it's not all carbon. But I've done some reading up, and the Black Eagle Carnivores and your gold tips are, from the readings that I've read, they're the best, all carbon. If you flex them, they're going to go back to the shape. And it's like a .0001 straightness. And I put them on and I put a muzzy on the end of it, and it's all over. I mean, it tunes just fine. I run a helical, a 30-degree helical on my veins or on my blazers. That's what I shoot on my carnivores. And man, they stack them in there.
What kind of muzzies are you shooting?
They're the, I can't think, they're the muzzy. They just come out with a big shit.
No biggie. Are they fixed or mechanicals?
Yeah, they're fixed. They're fixed blades. They got a little bit of a helical on the blades with them also. Muzzy had just come out with them this year, and I picked them up over at Allen's. He was telling me about them, and I tried them. I've never shot a mechanical broadhead, and the reason being, if I get a shot on a deer, I don't want to have to wonder, well, I wonder if this damn thing's going to open up. Is it going to do its job? Because I want to take any kind of screw up out of the equation. I want to know if I mess up, it's my fault. It's not because I had a mechanical malfunction, like my sights was loose or my broadhead didn't open and now this deer's going to run off and I'm never going to find him. I want to know that everything's legit, that whenever it comes time for me to do my job, it's me. It's not my bow. It's not my equipment. Everything's on me.
Gotcha. Yeah, right. Gotcha. I see that. That's everything's tuned in, ready to go. That only fault can be is you, right?
Right. Which, I've seen pictures of these guys that shot these deer with these rage, and my goodness, the holes that they put in. But what happens whenever you go to a shoulder or something like that with them, I've shot deer in the shoulder. I've shot my first buck I ever shot, I shot him in the shoulder. And that mud, it done its job, But not all broadheads and it just depends on what kind of luck you're having that day, shooting him in the shoulder, right in the shoulder, because some broadheads don't like bone too well.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Have you been shooting muzzy the whole time then?
Yes, sir, I sure have. I shot Exodus a little bit, but only thing I shot with those was a turkey, and he didn't go too far himself. But yeah, I've always shot muzzy, and I doubt I ever changed. Right
on, gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. It seems like once you find something that works for you, you stick with it and stand behind it.
Yep,
let's get in a little more of a setup as far as where you're hunting and kind of what, not necessarily where, unless you want to give me the GPS coordinates. We're way good with that. But let's get in a little bit tell us a little about like the terrain. Say you're good to your woods, and what do we kind of get us in the whole experience of what you give us a visual of what your setup is and what the terrain is right there where you particularly harvest this buck.
Yeah, see if you can get us paint us a picture of the landscape that we're dealing with here, just like we'd never seen it before. Describe it to us like we can't see it.
All right. It's mostly whenever you come into the road where I usually park at, there's a bunch of grown up cedars with some sage grass, and what it does, it runs down to right at the edge of the creek, and then it turns into hardwoods. That hardwoods, the creek kind of splits up part of the hardwoods. There's probably like a 20-yard section right before you get to the creek of the hardwoods, and it runs from one end of the farm all the way to a road. And then my creek runs straight through there, and that's where all the bottleneck and the pinch point is. And it's mostly just undergrowth, really, and small trees and stuff down around where I harvested my deer. And as you go back up to the south end of my farm, it opens up and it runs up onto a ridge, and the creek bends on around, and then it turns into some it's got a few acorn trees and some persimmons, and the ridge just runs all the way along until it gets to the next farm down there. Then it just drops off to flat. And on the bottom side of the creek, it's got there's some cedar thickets, and there's on the other side of the farm where it joins right there, there's a bunch of laid up tree tops and it's mostly just dead there. If you were to take an overview of the whole farm, where I killed my deer, and in that section, it's mostly just like a big bedding area. And there's not no really open woods. It's just a thicket. Like I said, you see 20 or 30 yards. And that's the farthest shot that you would have in there. There's no 50-yard shots or nothing like that. And that's sitting on the ground. That's being down in eye level with it, that you can have that far of a shot. But if you go up on the other south end side of the farm, it opens up a little more acreage and stuff like that. And the deer use it. But I've concentrated on this end where I'm at. I've run cameras all over the farm, and most of my deer movement, my scrapes, man, there's scrapes there every year. I can go tie ribbon on the trees, and that year there's going to be a scrape there, and it's going to be probably one of the most active scrapes in the area. I'm talking about like the size of a car hood. and I can get within a couple of trees of where that scrape's going to be at every year. And what I do, I mean, I hunt right in between where them scrapes are and their bedding area, and I went in there and I hung up a Millennium lock on. And I'm telling you, this tree probably ain't 10 inches around, 12 inches around. I mean, it's not big at all. But I hung a set in it this year, and I also took a big game blind, and there's some small saplings right up next to the creek. And I went into the center of them, and I cut them out. And I took my big game blind, and I sit it in there, and I just cleared out a couple of shooting lanes, and I just camouflaged it back in, left all the other little trees growed up around it. And that was basically for rainy days and whenever I had my boy. And if the wind was blowing 100 mile an hour, I'd go hunt it if I wanted to hunt it. But I try to play the wind also whenever I'm hunting. I mean, but it's hard. You sit there and look at camera pictures, and you see deer on this end of the farm, and you see all your deer on this. It's hard to leave this one area to go hunt that other area whenever you've got deer like I've had the past few years on camera, just one spot. And I mean, it's just like it's a sanctuary on that one hole for some reason. But it's always early season, like the first few weeks of bow, maybe up to the first muzzle load, and that's in October. But after that, I mean, they shut off because the acorns start falling, and they do move. They'll move onto the other farm next to me and stay over there. I mean, I have very, very few deer pictures, and they usually start coming back in about the second week after gun season goes out here. So I'm pretty psyched to go see what kind of deer stayed and made it through gun season and moved in to my spot, because I keep a log and a journal also while I'm, in different parts and mark spots on my phone, different parts of the farm, like the bedding areas that I think they're using more, or where there's more sign it's moved from this spot to that spot and why I think it's moved. I mean, I keep notes. I keep all deer movement. I keep it all wrote down. And
I think that's a very important part of whitetail hunting a particular area, is to take the notes, take the information, log it down, and refer back to it yearly. I mean, there's times that I can talk myself, and Jeremy, you sound like you're very similar to some other people about what's going on in the woods right now, and they say, well, my spot's dead. I'm moving out of this area because I haven't seen deer. Right. And I can clearly get the same feeling, but I can go back, refer to my notes that stated, even if it's in a different area or a different spot, stating that, this particular week, maybe this past 2 weeks, I didn't have much deer movement the previous years. It's just it's just the notes keep my mental game together, and it sounds like you're the same way. You can refer back and figure out why you're not seeing deer.
Right. That's what I do. I got pretty bummed out whenever it was getting close to muzzle and opening a gun, because I was so psyched about I knew what kind of deer had been coming in there, and I knew it was going to be the best opportunity for my little boy. But we ended up having to move across the road onto the other part of the farm to hunt. And I mean, there's deer movement there. I mean, there's still standing beans and stuff like that, which this was the first year they had ever put beans or anything in there.
Right.
But the deer got to those that, I mean, it's just a natural funnel on that side. And if they're going to cross that road or go from farm to farm, they've got to come through there.
Right. What kind of tree stand are you in? You in a hang on ladder? Or tell us a little bit about that.
It's a lock on. It's a Millennium. I mean, that's just like sitting in your recliner at home. I mean, it's comfortable. My cousin he told me about them, and I mean, they're very simple. I was always complaining about, once you get up there, you got to pull the whole stand up, you got to hold it, you got to put the ratchet strap around it or chain it or whatever. And he got to getting these Millenniums, and he was getting them from Hunter's Den over in Russellville. And I was like, I'm going to try me one. I'm going to go over and get one. So I went over and picked one up. You climb up, put your stacking sticks up there. You climb up there, and you got it's a log chain with like a little bracket. It's a chain, and you wrap your little chain around the tree and tighten it up. And that bracket sits there, then you take your stand, and I mean, that stand is super light. You just climb up, and you hook it's got a little spike. It's on the back of the stand, like on the bar. You just stick it down in that bracket, man, and it's there. It's a one-man show, I mean, sometimes you like to have somebody else there to help you hang stands, because you're going to have to fight with a 30-pound lock on, trying to get it up there and get it around the limbs and stuff.
Absolutely.
Millennium's the only way to go on lock-ons. I mean, I really do like them. Really do.
Awesome. Let's get into the hunt, man. Let's get in that the day. What day did you harvest or kill this 190-inch Kentucky Giant?
I killed him September the 14th.
We're gonna take you back, Jeremy, to September the 14th, 2014, let's kick it off from the time you got up. Let's roll from there. How did the day start out? And let's get into your day that you killed this monster Kentucky giant.
I'd hunted opening weekend, and it was kind of a shocker because I didn't see neither one of my big deer, seen some does. And I knew I hunted some during that week, and I had a good feeling about the weekend coming, but I wasn't 110% sure. I been shooting my bow, keeping in tune, and I woke up that Saturday. I was the 13th. I woke up. I woke my little boy up. He went hunting with me that morning and that afternoon, and we didn't have much luck. Seen some does and stuff like that, but it was still a great hunt. Seen some good deer movement, and that night we was talking about going back the next morning. So went to bed early, got up. I woke up before the alarm went off, and I was trying to get him up to go, and he wouldn't wake up. So I just left, and I was kind of running, behind, but not really. I eased out, got out there to the farm, and the way I'd been going into this farm, I just walked straight down, go straight into my stand. And I thought, what am I doing? Is there some reason that this deer is showing up on camera whenever I'm not here, but whenever I am here, he won't come in? I said, could I be bumping him going in? So what I did this time, I just walked in off the ridge down to the creek, and I hit the creek, and I took the creek all the way down to where I go up into my stand at. Because the creek, it ain't over knee deep, certain times of the year. And this year, it was low, and it was a little bit up over your ankle. But I walked in, and I went into the blind because of where the wind was blowing that morning. And climbed in there, got settled. Daylight come. Here come a few does. And so one of them had a set of twins. They was all playing around and stuff. And the turkey got the pitching down. And I was just enjoying the moment, but I was still looking for that deer. And every few minutes I'd pick up my binoculars and I'd scan the brush and just seeing if he wasn't standing over it, looking, checking in. But the deer looked pretty good up to about, I'd say 7 or so, 7:30. And then it was just like you turned them off. And, I got to thinking, I was like, well, maybe the way that I come in didn't have no effect or nothing like that. And, I was just sitting back enjoying being out in the woods, relaxing, just being away from the everyday life,
Right, absolutely.
And it was about 8:30, somewhere at night. I had some turkey working down the creek bank from the north. And I was just sitting there in that big game blind, just sitting there looking at, studying them, just watching them feed down through there. And while I was sitting there watching the turkey feed to me, a deer just walks in between my binoculars, like in the vision, and I could tell it had a rack. So I took my binoculars down, and I was like, oh, there's a buck. And as soon as I turned on it, man, I seen the kick. He got a flyer that comes out on that one side, and I caught a visual of it. I said, that's him. So I put my binoculars down, and my heart was up in my throat. And the only thing I could think of, I was like, I'm prepared for this shooting. I was like, I'm mentally and getting myself together to make this happen. I said, I'm going to have to put myself together. I said, because, this, don't nobody get a second shot at a deer that class.
Right. So let me take us back real quick. So you're sitting there, you're glassing turkeys, and a deer walks in between you and the turkeys, and you see it in your binoculars walk by.
Yeah, he comes up out of the creek. He crosses out of the CRP, like where I parked my truck, and he crosses the little creek crossing and just walks up into the part of the woods where I'm at, where my set's at.
That's crazy.
That's real crazy. Wow. All right, keep going. I'm into this thing now.
So we got him in the binoculars.
So I'm sitting there, and I check him out, and I find it, and I know it's him, so I set my binoculars down, and I started having flashbacks of what happened last year. It was the deer come in last year, and I was shook up. I'd practiced, 25-yard shots all year. I was stacking them. And I was like, I took the shot for granted last year. He come in. I had probably about a foot in between two trees where he was standing broadside. I had no clue that I was even in there. And I punched my release whenever I shot, and it smacked the side of the tree and went flying, and he takes off flying back through the woods, and I'm sitting there kicking myself in the head because that was I should have, and it was just a stupid mistake that I should have never made.
So you missed this buck the previous year?
Yeah, I missed him the second week of bow season last year.
No kidding.
Yes,
are we in the same area? Same farm, same area?
Same area, same set, same everything.
No kidding.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's a dream, man.
And, after I missed him last year, I didn't hunt for a whole week just to hopefully get him back in that area.
That's
and
great.
Actually, he did. He was back in that afternoon that I missed him on camera, but he moved to nighttime. He was moving all nighttime from then on out. He didn't go back to daytime until this time of year, like right now. He started coming back during the day, but
yeah, the mature bucks tend to not like that meat missile flying by them. They know something's up.
I'd shot a 140-inch 9-pointer last year, last day of gun season. So, like I said, I left my cameras out, food out, all that stuff for them because I wanted to see what made it through the season and, the rut and all that. But I had all that stuff planned in my mind, man. And you know how a deer does whenever there's turkey around. He'll watch them turkey, and if the turkey alert, he's going to be checking out and see what's going on and getting the heck out of there.
Yeah, it's like having scout soldiers out when you got a flock of turkeys out there.
Yeah. Those turkeys, they was piling, they was within 4 or 5 yards of my blind. And
no kidding.
They were just walking straight in front of me, and I had my bow up, and I just put my head down and just squinted my eyes. And I was praying to God that everything went right this time, because it was just like a dream. It was. You don't ever have a chance at a deer that class 2 years in a row, and I was just wanting to make everything right. Those turkey, they finally cleared me, and I turned to look to see where he was at, and he was gone. And what he had done, he walked underneath my deer stand and made it around to the thicket in front of me. So I picked him up walking down the edge, and there's a little bitty logging road that runs kind of center of those woods that it's been kind of washed out or whatever you want to call it. And those deer use that to travel the center of the woods, and that's what he had done. And he was walking up the road, and he steps out, and he's dead in front of me at 30 yards. And I'm still trying to gather myself, and he turns, and he walks like he's going to walk to the south end of my farm, but he goes up, and that's how my camera shows him too, is coming in from the south end. But what he was doing, he's walking down that thicket, and the camera wasn't catching him there, and he's making a loop around one of these trees, and he's coming into the mineral and all that that's right in front of me. And he stepped right there, and he stepped behind that one tree. I was like, it's now or never. So I drew back, I got my anchor point, and he walked out. He still had no clue. The turkey had already cleared us. And I put that pin right behind his front shoulder, and then he just decides he wants to quarter and walk up into me some more. So I hate a quarter and 2 shot. I just despise it. And I was like, I've got this deer in front of me. I can't let down now. And I was locked. I was still solid, but I was keeping the anxiety. I was trying to keep it pushed out of my head, and I picked it right up in front of his front shoulder. And as soon as I got it anchored on there, I let it go. And it was all downhill from there. I heard it smack him, and whenever it smacked, he ran sideways about 3 or 4 steps, and he turned and he went away. And as was the moment whenever my darn knees started, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to walk out the blind or not. I couldn't. I set my bow down, my knees was knocking. I couldn't. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was tripping, and the first thing I done, I picked up my phone, man, because I tell Pat everything. Pat puts out great cameras, and I send him pictures of deer, turkey, or whatever all the time, and he's known about this deer for a couple of years, ever since I even missed him last year. And I picked up the phone and I texted Pat. I was like, dude, I got him. I said, Stickers is dead. And Eric, my cousin, he was in New Mexico, and I texted him. I said, I got him. And he's like, the big one, and my phone goes dead. So I get all my stuff together. I don't even go look for the deer or nothing. I take off to my truck just as hard as I can go. I run up there, I plug my phone in, and one of the guys that hunts the farm right across the road, he was up there hanging up a stand. So I ran down there, jumped over the fence. I whistled for him. He whistled back, and I took off running up there. I said, man, I got him. He's like, the big one? I was like, yeah. He's like, I thought you gun shot that deer last week. I said, I'll tell you the story on that later. So we run. He goes with me, and I call one of my good buddies, Josh West. He's one of my buddies I've hunted with my whole life. We grew up hunting. He's 110% bow hunting. He loves it. And I called him, and I said, I got the deer. And he's like, well, I said, you can come at me tracking or whatever if you want to. So he was on his way. Me and Scott walked back down, and I got to finding a little bit of blood. He's like, so tell me about this deer. Well, he said, I thought you gun shot the deer. I said, I'm going to tell you like this. I said, hey, you say you've got friends. I said, but whenever it comes to deer, you have no friends. I said, I've heard of people trying to move in around me and try to hunt it there and get permission to the same farm as I've got. And I know people that hung stands on the property lines because they've seen this deer. And I said, I did tell people that I gut shot this deer. And I said, the reason is because that would make them quit hunting. And it did. I mean, they were taking down the stands like the next couple of days. And they sit there and tell you, I ain't trying to hunt that deer. I want to see you get it. No, you don't hang a stand on the property line hoping to get a shot, you know, and put a camera and corn and everything else out, not if you ain't going to hunt a deer. But I said, it worked. I said, I don't care what they believe now. I said, I know where he's at and I know whose wall he's going to be on. I said, if we can find him. And we walked down. After we got done talking, we walked down. I found some blood and had some, you know, bubbles in it. And I was like, well, and he's like, where'd you shoot me? I said, man, I aimed right in front of the front shoulder, hoping it would come out behind the back one on the other side. Behind the front one on the other side. And he's like, all right. He's like, well, it looks like he might have got a lung. And then Josh calls, and he's there, and I show him the blood. And he's like, well, it looks like you got a lung or something. There's bubbles in it. We go to tracking the deer, and, I mean, we're going through some crap. I mean, it looks like, it's just a bunch of tree branches and thick crap. I mean, he went in, I don't know, a rabbit couldn't even go in, it looks like at times. But I got through, I think I was running on adrenaline, but I got through there, man, and there was one part of the wood, there was an old dead tree, and there's blood, and I was like, there's blood going over this tree. I'm going to walk up here and check it out and see if I can find it. And Josh is like, he's got to be in here somewhere. So I walk up there, man, I step up on that tree, and there he lays. And first thing I said was, oh, my God. And they're like, what, is that him? I was like, yeah. And, I mean, it was just everything just hit me all at once, you know. It was kind of emotional, and happiness and, you know, hard work and all that stuff finally paid off. But seeing a monster like that laying in front of you, I mean, the first person you got to thank is God, because, I mean, he's the one to give us our lives and these animals to hunt. I mean, you know, and
he's the creator.
And, you know, he's the one that wakes us up every morning and says, hey, you know, you got to live today. You know, I mean, I was just thankful that he woke me up that morning and let me do something that I like to do. And I was very, you know, being thankful for friends to come help me look for the deer, and just everything paid off. And it was a wild experience, you know. I mean, he is a good deer, and everybody said, they're like, you wouldn't be able to tell me nothing. You might as well quit hunting now if you kill a deer like that. I said, it's not about how big the animal is or what he scores. That's what everybody's caught up on anymore, is what a deer scores. And that's not what it's about. It's about putting in your work and your work paying off, whether it's a 190-inch deer or if it's a 120-inch deer, you know.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean,
right.
It's just all about what pays off.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's an awesome story.
What a great story. Jeremy, that's one of the most mesmerizing stories I think we've ever heard on the Big Buck podcast. I was with you word for word.
It's unbelievable, Jeremy, that Jay's quiet the whole story there.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, it's just like it's just like a book. I mean, play by play, I mean, just feeling it, you know. I mean, it's kind of like the other podcast I was listening to the other day. She, whenever she's explaining her hunt, you know, whenever you tell about a hunt or harvesting a deer like that, you want to tell every step, because every step means so much to you. And it's just hard to leave a spot out, or, you know, part out of the story about a hunt on a deer like that of a lifetime.
Right.
Absolutely.
It was mesmerizing, and yeah, I clam up when I get interested in stuff. It's my natural behavior. So, Jeremy, you got me, man. You got me hook, line, and sinker.
That's good. Yeah, I was listening to Jody's podcast the other day, and
yeah,
I tell you, she really went into detail about hers also. And I mean, you hear stories or you read stories in magazines, and you just get burnt out. And then you got the ones that really keep you on the edge. Once you want to know what's happening next, or you think you know what's going to happen, then it's something totally different happens, and that's what keeps it interesting. And, you know, that's what hunting and everything's about: staying on your toes and just living to see what happens next and what's going to go on in the future.
Right.
It's one of the things, like, you know, we talk about past podcasts, and we're talking with Jeremy Knight, who obviously killed a monster buck, but it's the story that's told by the hunters that's so grasping. You know, that's like the definition of the Big Buck podcast. We want the story in detail from the start to the finish. We want to know everything. We want it to be like you're right there sitting next to the person that released the arrow or pulled the trigger. You know, that's what's awesome. And Jeremy, that was a great story. And man, it was hard for me to kind of chime in because I was so involved with the story myself.
I appreciate it. It's, man, I like listening to y'all's podcasts. I mean, they're very informative. You know, I pick up things that I learn, and I hope that maybe somebody can pick up something from this one and learn something from it, you know. I mean, we all make mistakes, we all miss, we all lose deer, but, hey, we're here to help one another out, and that's what hunters need to do, stick together instead of, you know, going against each other and trying to outdo or cut in on somebody else. We need to stick together because the way this presidential stuff is about guns and all that stuff, you can't ever tell. But if we all stick together instead of fighting each other, I think, you know, we'll all be good.
Absolutely.
Completely agree with that statement. Hunters got to band together. And, you know, there's so many people trying to take away our privileges and make it hard for us. And listening to Jody tell her story with the passion that she did, listening to you, Jeremy, tell the story with the passion you did, this whole love of the outdoors and hunting and deer hunting is alive and well. And because there are so many against us, there's only one thing to do, and that's to stick together.
Right, it is. I mean, we're all not perfect. You know, we all make mistakes, and there's people that call themselves hunters that makes mistakes, and that's what everybody wants to see. Is somebody make a mistake, whether it be a hunter or just anything that the media or anything can feed off of to blow up to make somebody look bad. That's what they look for. They don't ever look for the good in what they do. You know, like hunters for the hungry. I mean, they give to families that, you know, that don't have much, but you don't ever hardly hear nothing about that. But you see somebody that talks about, well, he's got blood all over him in that picture. They want to knock on that. Well, that's animal cruelty, or, man, it's all part of hunting. I mean, there's good. There's not always bad and everything, but there's plenty of good if people would look at the good instead of always the negative. I mean, the world would be a lot better off in hunt world and the world period. I mean, everyday life. But you've got the media that on News Channel 5 or whatever, man, they're always feeding on the negative stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's constant. It's just disgusting. But no, we're glad to have you on our show, and man, we just love what you're doing. Congratulations on shooting a ginormous buck. Just couldn't be happier for you.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man.
Absolutely.
Any further questions for Jeremy, Dusty? You got you want to pick his brain anymore?
I want to hear the best hunting tip you got, Jeremy.
Ooh, good one.
Best hunting tip I've got.
The very best tip that you use season after season that makes you more successful in the woods.
Stay in the woods, stay focused, and never give up.
That's one heck of a tip right there.
That's a couple of different tips, but you got to stay in there and you got to stay dedicated. I mean, you can't get frustrated whether, you know, your big deer's been on camera, then he's gone missing, and something good's going to happen. If you do your homework and you stay with it, something good's going to come out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's a fact right there.
Yep. It's get out, stay out, and let it happen. Love it, man. Well, Jeremy, this has been awesome, and I can't thank you enough. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on our show. You tell one heck of a good deer story, and you're one heck of a great deer hunter, and I would love to have you back on again in the future as you continue down your quest to hunt down the big bucks, and let us know kind of how you're doing it so we can hopefully learn a thing or two about how you did and basically put it into our repertoire of things or how to hunt ourselves.
Awesome. Sounds good. I hope y'all have a good season also.
Yeah, we're trying. We're trying, brother.
So all you can do is put 110% into it and hope for the best.
That's it.
Yep. That is it.
Yep. Well, man, once again, it's just, you hear a great deer story, and as you said, I was mesmerized and I shut my mouth. And that's a good indication that I'm in. I'm listening. I'm in tune. I'm listening to the whole breakdown.
Yeah, I was thinking you fell asleep, but after I figured it out, you was freaking deep into that story.
I've been accused of falling asleep before because I got so quiet, but it's really just because I'm paying so much attention. I'm focused.
You know, that's what it's all about, Jay.
It is.
That's what we want out of these stories, to really get you involved as a listener, get you involved in the story that's being told right in front of you. I mean, that was one awesome story. Jeremy Knight, kudos for a monster buck in Kentucky.
Yes, kudos for what you did in the field and what you did with us tonight on the mic. Just awesome. Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. When he said that it doesn't matter if it's a 120-inch deer or 190-inch deer, you put 110% into it to find it, man. That right there tells me that's a good hunter.
That's it. The effort is telltale of the hunter's abilities and just heart. Just the heart you have about this sport.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a dedication that when you hit the tree stand, good shot, bad shot, it doesn't matter. You go the extra mile to locate that shot
right. Yep.
on that animal. If that animal's wounded, you try to find it. And everybody makes mistakes. And I'm here to tell you that you're not going to kill every deer you release an arrow at. It's not going to happen.
I've wounded deer before with arrows, a couple of them, and they're still the memories are so vivid of how it all went down. There was a just bloodbath, and that deer walked away. How do they do that? I don't know.
They're one of the toughest animals I've ever ran into.
Mm-hmm. Had another one. I could see it basically landed in no man's land. I could see the arrow just bouncing around through the woods, disappearing. The no man's land that we talked about last week.
It's one of them things where if you shoot and you wound one, you never make that shot again.
Nope.
That shot is never ever going to be made again. And it takes a wounded deer to make you realize what kind of shot that you need to wait for.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's about placement. You get that arrow in the boiler room, and it'll shut down the engine.
Now, here's another example of a deer. I shot a deer, a 35-yard shot at dusk from a climbing tree stand one year in a overgrown old logging road. He was just coming up the hill and crossed. I heard the thwack of the arrow hitting the deer. I thought I was in the kill zone. Turns out I wasn't. The deer turned and ran southbound down the hill. I could hear the crash, crash, crash. I knew the direction. I had a direction of where it went. Not a single drop of blood anywhere to follow. The next day, it was opening day of muzzleloader. When I shot, it was the last day of the day prior to muzzleloader opening. My father-in-law came up, and we ended up, I had a direction, I had sound, I knew approximately where the last piece of sound came from. I knew where it went, but I had no blood trail whatsoever. We ended up doing like this grid search, back and forth between a power line and basically an abandoned dirt road. And after a while, my father-in-law called me and says, "Hey, I found your arrow sticking in this deer down here in the swamp." And he had just basically seen the whites of the belly, but still no blood. And went down, sure enough, it was the buck that I had shot the night before. 350 yards later.
It's craziness.
Yep.
I shot one time. Here's a story on my end. Shot a pretty nice 8-point, probably 2007, 8-ish. My brother went hunting with me. Go to the woods. I got a buck at 30 yards broadside, eating on corn. I release an arrow. It falls short.
Yep.
10 minutes later, he comes back to the corn pile, broadside, 30 yards. I release another arrow. It falls short. I'm down to my last arrow in my quiver. The buck walks right back towards me, straight on, straight head on, walking straight to me. He gets it about 15 yards. I release another arrow, sticks him in the neck. It's the only shot I had. I aimed for the esophagus, dead center, hopefully to penetrate through the chest.
Yep.
I shoot. I see the deer run off. I see my fletching sticking out of his neck. The rest of the arrow is whatever, 20 inches deep. He runs off, goes into a thicket. It's all cedars, downhill. I'm thinking, man, hopefully this works. This was a pretty deadly shot. I felt good when I released the arrow. Long story short, we go back to the truck, give the buck some time. I look at my bow, and the string's frayed. Have no clue how it happened. Have no idea it's there until I get to the truck.
Yeah,
that's why I'm shooting short of the buck. So we go back in.
Gotcha.
We go back into the woods. About 2 hours later, it's dark, and we hunt for this buck. No blood, nowhere. We look and look and look, no blood. My brother's like, "You didn't hit him." I'm like, "I'm telling you, I shot this buck in the neck. I can see the fletchings was the only thing sticking out." Well, what had happened is that arrow went in and it sealed off. The hide sealed around the arrow. It was angling downhill shot. So I shot him, on a downhill angle. So when the arrow went in, the opening was higher than the actual damage. That buck ran about 250 yards down into a thicket. And the only reason we found that buck that night was my brother was down in there 250 yards away from the shot. And he found something that looked like it was pushing itself downhill. And still no blood. So he's literally on his hands and knees crawling through briars, cedars. It was the nastiest stuff I've ever got into.
Yeah.
So finally, about 40 yards into that, my buck was piled up right there.
No kidding.
If it wouldn't been for us grid searching, pattern back and forth, circling, and he located in push marks, we probably would have never found that buck.
Right. The grid search, and this brings up a good point, the grid search is a useful technique with a couple of people, just gridding back and forth. It has recovered bucks. It recovered my buck. It recovered one of your bucks. It is a useful technique in a buck where you have no blood, but you hit him.
Yeah, definitely. That's it's something that worked for me, and it's something to definitely try, especially if you're in the thick stuff and where you have zero visibility at a distance.
Right, exactly. So that's a good tip. Speaking of tips, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week, Dusty?
We do. And I'm going to get into cold weather gear. You got to get yourself dressed for the elements.
Yeah.
If you go out to the tree stand and you get cold, your hunt is over. So my tip of the week is to spend the money, get the right equipment before you head out for cold weather hunting. If not, your hunt is over.
That's a great tip. Now, being from the Northeast, very important for cold weather, but keep in mind, if we have snow, we're moving, so you don't need as much as you would if you're sitting in the stand because you're gonna be burning some calories. What do you use in the stand when it's like 15 degrees? What kind of gear are you wearing?
I'm actually layered up with fleece.
Fleece is awesome, man. Love fleece.
It's it's a great thing, and I layer fleece. I start out with a base layer of fleece, and then I go to another cover layer of fleece.
Yep.
And I layer another layer of fleece on top of that. So I'm in 3 layers of fleece pants with a rain suit over top of that, leggings. That's for my breeches.
Yep.
I Mossy Oak Infinity Breakup, or Mossy Oak Breakup Infinity for my cover outfit.
Yep.
But on the top end, I got Under Armour for the base layer. I got the Under Armour sweatshirt for the second layer, and a fleece layer over top the Under Armour. And then I do the rain jacket coat, which is quiet, and it's it's almost wind resistant.
Yep.
So it cuts the cold climates as far as the wind, and if it starts snowing or misting or raining, I'm covered there. And that's how I go in. I wear wool socks. I got 2,400 gram Thinsulate boots. I wear a fleece neck gaiter, a fleece hat, and fleece mitten finger gloves.
Awesome. Very cool.
That's my cold weather gear.
That's your setup. Beautiful. I'll give you my cold weather setup that I had for last weekend in 25-degree weather, all day, windy, not raining, just windy and cold. I had a layer of Under Armour, just the base layer, kind of spandexy kind of stuff, scent control, but a good thick thermal layer, but flexible. Then on top of that, I've got my kind of like a scent lock bottom pantsuit that is not super conditioned for cold weather. It's not like there's a layer in between. It's not built for cold weather necessarily, but it is going to give me a layer of air. So there's some kind of a break between my skin, the Under Armour, and the outside. Then I've got almost like a fleece cotton on top of my Under Armour. And then on top of that, sometimes I'll put a layer of fleece, but generally it's just a jacket on top of that. And then I got an Under Armour hat, not too thick. And I actually found some of my old wool gloves that are really thin, generally speaking. But when you're moving around, I was amazed at how warm they are. Usually it's just like a fleece glove, but those were wet from the hunt before the day and they still hadn't dried out. So I just found some old wool gloves that were not just basic stuff, but man, they kept my hands warm the whole day. My boots are 1,200 gram Thinsulate, kept my feet very warm all day, and just literally had my lucky socks on. super thin socks, just kind of drawn up underneath the Under Armour. And all day tracking in 6-inch snow, 25 degrees. My feet couldn't have stayed warmer. They did not get wet. They did not get cold. It was like the perfect temperature all day.
Nice. That's the difference between you and me. I'm still hunting in a tree stand.
Yeah.
And man, I gotta layer up and get settled in for no movement and be able to fight off the cold.
Right. And if I were sitting still, I'd be wearing some different clothes.
Right. Absolutely. You just got to be prepared for the elements that you're hunting. And like I said, you go out there and you sit there and you get cold, you can forget it. You're miserable. It's not enjoyable.
Yep. You stiffen up. It's not fun. It's not fun at all.
This makes you not want to go back the next day. If you can go out there and be comfortable, be warm, and enjoy yourself, man, it's night and day difference of what your hunt's going to be like.
You ever thought about getting one of those, like, I don't even know what they call them. This, like, basically a sleeping bag for your stand.
I think it's called a heater bodysuit.
That's it. You ever tried that?
No, I have not.
I have not either. I've heard some guys that had some great success, said it was just like sitting in their living room all day, and it was 20 below.
The only issue that I see with that is archery equipment. You have to unzip and come out of it.
Right. It seems awkward.
Yeah, it seems different. I'd say, maybe rifle hunting sitting still or shotgun hunting sitting still, you may be okay because you don't have to really worry about deer coming in at a close distance. But you get into a 25-yard shot with archery equipment, it's going to be a little bit difficult to get unzipped and get out of the heater bodysuit.
Right.
But I'm not saying they don't work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's going to be a technique, and you're going to have to be, as soon as you see deer, be out of it.
Right.
You gotta kind of plan out your shot, get ready for it.
Probably a little easier to use with a firearm.
Oh, absolutely. I agree to that.
Yeah.
But, I'd say it probably keeps you warm, though.
I'm sure it does. Absolutely. Well, that's awesome, man. Good tips for this cold weather, late season kind of stuff. How can we find you, Dusty, when we're not listening to the podcast?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Check me out at Dusty Huntneck, and my new venture is Antler Life. Us hunters are all living the antler life. Jay, how can people get with you at the Big Buck Registry when you're not on the podcast?
When I'm not on the podcast, couple ways. First, I'd like to invite you to join us on iTunes. Obviously, you might be listening on iTunes, but I'd like to, if you're not listening on iTunes, I'd like to invite you to join us on iTunes and come in and subscribe and give us a review. 5-star, hopefully, if you like the show. Free subscription. You don't have to pay to be here. You can just get a notification every single week, let you know that there's a brand new show. That's www.bigbuckregistry.com/iTunes. You can also join us on a different network called Stitcher, and that's www.bigbuckregistry.com/Stitcher. That would be for your Android or Windows phones if you're not on an Apple device. You can give us a call at 724-613-2825. That would be our feedback line, or if you just want to get a hold of us, get something you want to point out, if you like us to cover a certain topic or interview a certain person, that would be a great place to leave us a message. Feedback about the show, having any technical difficulties, whatever it is, that's where we'd love to hear from you. You can always shoot me an email at j@bigbuckregistry.com or Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com. Both of those will get to us. And if you would like to do a share for share, it's bigbuckregistry.com/S4S. And lastly, if you'd like to get your buck picture of the big buck that you shot this year or any other year featured on our Facebook page, which we now have turned 140,000 followers, you can send a photo to www.bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. And that'll prompt you and give you some instructions on how to get it featured on the Big Buck Registry's Facebook page. And just forewarning, we don't take them all. We do actually sort through quite a few of them. So that's it, man. That's how you can find us offline.
That's a whole lot of big buck.
It is. A couple of shows coming up in January, the ATA show. And we're going to be there, aren't we, Dusty?
Absolutely. If you're going to be at the ATA show and you'd like to hook up with us, just shoot us a message, get us a number, and we'll be glad to hook up with you and say hi to each other and meet you face to face right there at the show.
Definitely. Yeah, shoot us. You can send us a text at the 724-613-2825. Say, hey, let's meet up. I'm at the ATA show. We'd love to hear from you because we like to talk to our fans. Or if you're another podcaster, that's a great way to reach out. 724-613-2825. Say, hey, I'm at the ATA. Let's do a meetup. And that is in Indianapolis, the January 8th through the 10th.
And also, we're going to be at the Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir.
That's coming up in February. I think that's the 7th through the 15th.
Yep. We're going to be there for the first few days. We're probably not going to do the second part, but we'll be there for the first weekend for sure.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to meeting some awesome people that listen to us weekly.
Absolutely. I want to get out. I want to shake some hands. I want to meet some people that listen to our show. So please, if you are a listener, just let us know that you're going to be at either of these shows, or shoot us an email, Jay or Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate everybody's downloads. We appreciate everybody's reviews. Thanks for hanging with us every Saturday at 5 a.m.
Coming out starting at 5 a.m. and going all week long. So, oh man, this is Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
This is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. See you next week.
Can't wait.